Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, welcome everyone. This is ANC 340 regular meeting on the second Monday of April. We meet on the second and the fourth Mondays of each month. We're glad to have everyone here. My name is Randy Speck. I am the chair of the commission and I represent ANC 34G03, which is basically the area between Nebraska and Utah and Broad Branch. And we'll begin with an introduction of the commissioners. And Chaz, you want to go next first? You're muted, Chaz.
Some might prefer that. I'm Charles Cadwell. I'm the single member representative from 3G07, which is roughly between military, Reno, Nebraska, and Nevada.
Connie?
Good evening. My name is Connie Chang. I'm the commissioner for Single Member District 05, which begins on Legation, going up Connecticut, over on Western, down on Broad Branch Road, with a segment that is between Chevy Chase Parkway and Nevada, down Legation to Jocelyn. Nice to be here.
Peter?
I'm Peter Gosselin. I represent District 6, which is the west side of Connecticut back to 41st Street from the Western Avenue and the Chevy Chase Circle to Military, with a peninsula to the east of Connecticut to Chevy Chase Parkway between Kanawha and Legation. Welcome, everyone.
And John?
I'm John Higgins. I am the representative for Single Member District 02. My territory is basically north from Military Road to Aberfoyle and east to west from Oregon Avenue to Utah.
Okay, we have 5 commissioners here. We may be joined later by Michael Zeldin and Lisa Gore, commissioners as well. But we have a quorum, and so we can conduct business tonight. So we'll go ahead and begin the meeting, and they hopefully will join us. As everyone is quite well aware, we are meeting virtually again. We really want to have community participation in our meetings, but it's been a little bit more difficult recently because we've had some people who have joined the meeting and have posted some very inappropriate and vulgar posts in the chat. And so as a result, we've had to change our operation a bit so that everyone has to register in order to join the meeting. And we're hoping that that avoids the problem, but we want to encourage everyone to participate in a courteous and respectful and civil way. If people do not follow those norms that we really expect from everyone, then we will remove you from the meeting. And so everyone should be well aware of that. We are, during the meeting, because this is a webinar, all of the commissioners have audio and video throughout the meeting. But whenever during the meeting, any of the attendees need to participate, either make presentations or to ask questions or whatever, we can recognize them and make those attendees panelists as well, so that they will have audio and video. And we will do that through the meeting. Please, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A. And if you have comments or distinct from questions, please put them in the chat. That way we can track them and be sure that we respond to the questions if necessary. Also, we'll copy all of those, the Q&A and the chat at the end of the meeting, so we'll have a record of that. The meetings are also being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel tomorrow. So before we go any further in the meeting, we'll ask Michael Zeldin and Lisa Gore to introduce themselves. Just joined us. Michael?
I'm Michael Zeldin. 3G04 is my single member district, which starts at around Lafayette Elementary and goes to Western, to Upland, to Broad Branch and Utah, that little circle.
And Lisa?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Gore, and I'm the ANC commissioner for 3G01, which is all of Hawthorne and portions of Barnaby Woods. So I cover from Western Avenue, Pinehurst Circle, Upland, back over past the tributary, over to Beach Street, and back up Oregon Avenue where it intersects with Oregon. Western, thanks for coming.
Okay, we now have all 7 commissioners here. I want to also, before we begin, apologize that I am not in Washington now, I'm not at my usual setup, and therefore I'm hopeful that my Wi-Fi connection will hold through the whole meeting. But if it doesn't, I've made Connie the co-host, and she can continue to monitor the meeting and conduct it in terms of the Zoom portion of it. Now we need to adopt our agenda. The agenda has been posted on our website and on various listservs and other social media. Are there any modifications or changes that need to be made to the agenda? Okay, if there are none, all in favor of adopting the agenda? 7-0. Okay, thank you. The first item is the commissioner announcements as normal, and I have several. The first is with regard to the Murray proposed sports field, and this is just an update on the status of that. On April 6th, the Board of Zoning Adjustment unanimously approved Murray's proposal for a sports field at ECC. The board found that the proposed sports fields are a legitimate private school use and therefore properly considered by the board as a special exception. They rejected the argument that Murray's leasing of the field converted it to a commercial operation, and they rejected the argument of the Attorney General that this was more properly a zoning variance and could only be considered by the Zoning Commission. The board complimented the ANC for its work with Murray and the community to develop the conditions in a memorandum of understanding, but it found that some of the memorandum of understanding conditions were beyond the zoning scope of the BZA's jurisdiction and what it could enforce. Those include even things related to construction of the field, and therefore the BZA felt uncomfortable with including all of those in its order. But it said it would incorporate into the MOU into the order and reference it and it expected that Murray would honor all of these commitments that are in the MOU. The board order will include a condition that Murray designate a representative to be the liaison to the ANC to ensure that the memorandum of understanding is followed. The group that opposed Murray's proposal immediately filed a motion to stay the case pending appeal, but the BZA rejected that motion as premature because it cannot be made until there is a final written order and decision. And the final written decision may not be issued even for several months. So we'll have to wait and see what that order includes. The next item I had for an announcement is that with an update again on the ANC redistricting reports and the subcommittee hearing on redistricting the ANC boundaries. The ward redistricting task forces have completed their reports with recommendations for new ANCs and single member district boundaries. They are available on the Ward 3 and Ward 4 redistricting websites, and we'll include those in our minutes as well. On April 7th, the council's redistricting subcommittee held the first of 2 hearings on these redistricting reports, and the video of the hearing is available on the subcommittee's website. The portion of that addresses Ward 3 begins at 2 hours and 22 minutes into the video, and then it's immediately followed by the portion related to Ward 4. The meeting, the hearing went on, as I understand it, for 8 or 9 hours. It's a very long meeting. The second and final subcommittee hearing will be held on April 28th. And if you'd like to participate in that hearing, you can go again to the subcommittee's website. The next announcement I have is with regard to the Beach Drive closure. As everyone knows, this has been closed during the pandemic to vehicles for driving through the park. The National Park Service has been preparing an environmental assessment about continuing this closure of the park, and it was to have been issued last December. The superintendent now reports that the process is delayed because the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service recently issued a plan to protect the endangered hay spring amphipod, which lives in the seeps along Beach Drive. This plan, the Fish and Wildlife Service's plan, will impact the final decision about opening Beach Drive, and the National Park Service needed to wait until that was finalized. They are also doing a carrying capacity study for this area. The Fish and Wildlife Plan is open for comment for another 30 days. And right now, the National Park Service expects to complete the environmental assessment in July. And the road will remain closed until a final decision is made. The superintendent said that the MPS is very deliberative in this process to try and get the best informed decision. And finally, I am happy to announce that the Carnegie Institution for Science on Broad Branch Road will begin its spring neighborhood lecture series on Thursday, April 28th from 6:30 to 7:30. And that will be a discussion by Dr. Peter Gao on his work with the new James Webb Space Telescope to explore unusual exoplanets. And I heard a presentation from him recently, and he really was fantastic. It was outstanding. Carnegie plans to hold the next lecture in this series on June 16th, and they're hoping that it's going to be in person. Okay, other announcements from commissioners? John?
I have one announcement. It's kind of deja vu. I made the same announcement Saturday morning here at Knollwood to the Residents Association. And I began there by saying, this is the part of the meeting where you get to shoot the messenger, because the messenger is not good. The message is not good. This is regards to Piney Branch Bridge. I will just say, I'll read this brief announcement from Jim Kendricks. Twice in the past 9 days, I think I've been in touch with her to get an update on the status. So this is updated as of noon on Friday. I received your email and consulted with the team on an update. We received the contractor's update report, and based on that data, they anticipate the substantial bridge completion in late May. That's the bad news. I'm sure your constituents are construction fatigued at this point, but please ask them to be patient. There has been an industry-wide backlog of construction materials due to COVID-19 impacts, but the crew is working every day to bring this to completion. Thank you for your support throughout the construction project. So this morning when I was doing my meeting prep and decided I would take a walk to get away from the ANC for a little bit, I found my legs taking me to the bridge anyway. And I talked to the man there. They're about halfway done with the cross beam, and they were digging up this morning with a backhoe. And I said, oh my God, it's just more stormwater stuff. And the guy said, no, they're preparing to lay the asphalt on the south side of the bridge entrance. So I think that's progress. So anyway, officially we're looking at late May for substantial completion. So that's my announcement.
Okay, Michael?
So there was a request by the DCPS for people interested in leasing space, making space available. We talked about this before when it was announced by the chancellor and the mayor that DCPS would have the authority to lease, and whether or not there were any lease buildings available, whether ECC would apply and all that. The answer is nobody applied. And so what they're doing is keeping the opportunity to apply open indefinitely until they get people who might be interested. And so the ECC is out, it seems, and nobody else is in. And so we are at square zero, if zero is a square.
Okay, Connie?
I just want to report that I was told by the External Affairs Department of General Services that the Chevy Chase playground near the community center will begin work on replacing or patching the turf. This has been going on for well over a year. They were supposed to have done it last June, then it was December, same thing with supply issues, but they're going to start. I was supposed to have started today, but I'm not there. So I'm away from TC, so I can't go check it out. But they were supposed to start today, as long as there were 3 full days of good weather for everything to seal. So I wanted to share that sort of good news with the community.
Chaz?
Sure, thank you. Both Connie and I are on the Community Advisory Committee for the Connecticut Avenue Reversible Lane implementation. And we met on April 6th. And the there'll be a long process for this, but and we have a 2-pager we'll put up on our website, but the DDOT basically doesn't have a ton of discretion. So the switch from a 30-mile-an-hour to a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit's going into effect right now. And the reversible lane signs and markings are all may have already been all taken away. And so the role for this advisory committee is really to look at the details of bike lanes, left turn lanes, parking on the avenue and on the side streets. And so they have a draft of a map that they're going through section by section. And that will be made public in mid-May in a hearing of some sort, or public meeting sometime in mid-June. It's not clear to me at this point anyway how much discretion they have to deal with the things that I know may be of bigger concern to people. But updated traffic studies and that sort of thing are also due at some point. And they don't really begin construction until sometime well into 2023, I think. But the schedule and some greater details will be on our website pretty quickly. I don't want to take a lot of time right now.
Okay, any other commissioner announcements?
Yeah.
Michael?
Sorry, one other thing, Connie reminded me, I have been in touch with Parks and Recreation, and they tell me that they have a work order in to deal with the erosion at Lafayette as it goes down toward Broad Branch. The stairs are crumbling and the ground is eroding, and they said they have budget money set aside for this year, and they're working with DGS to formulate a executable plan to do that, but that it's to be done.
We have DPR on our agenda later today. We can ask them about that specifically if we'd like. Okay, shall we go then to community announcements? I know Amir is in the audience. Amir, yes, you've raised your hand. I figured you would have a request to make announcements.
As we're waiting for Amir to come on, I remind him and all community announcers to give me text of what they say. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I do have very quick announcements today. Just a couple upcoming events run by the city. The first is this Saturday, we're having the DC Emancipation Day Parade. It's going to start at 2 p.m. at Pennsylvania Avenue between 10th Street and 14th Street Northwest. And it's supposed to end at Freedom Plaza, right in front of City Hall. For those who aren't familiar with what DC Emancipation Day is, if you know what Juneteenth is, it's basically Juneteenth, but in DC. So Juneteenth is the day that the last of the slaves in Southern Texas were freed. So DC Emancipation Day is in April. It happened a couple months earlier. And that's when slaves were freed in DC. It's essentially DC's version of Juneteenth. So that's happening this Saturday. It's starting at 2, parade from 2 p.m., concert and fireworks at 3 p.m. I think the fireworks are actually 8 p.m., but the parade ends at 3 p.m. and the mayor will be there. I will be there. There will be food trucks. So for those who can come on down. And next Wednesday on April 20th, we have the groundbreaking for the Joy Evans Recreation Center. This is over in Ward 7, 3030 G Street Southeast. And this is going to be a revolutionary new place for all sorts of special needs. So that includes physical needs, emotional needs, mental needs. Right now there is already an existing heated pool on the premises, and that's intended for people who are suffering from pain, joint pain, arthritis, tension, all things like that. And it's specifically designed, it's at a temperature specifically designed to be therapeutic. But the groundbreaking is to begin the construction process for a whole new facility. So that includes sensory rooms for children with issues like autism. And it's going to encourage a connection with nature because it's right in a wooded area. So it's supposed to be an all-encompassing sort of environment for all sorts of wellness for all age groups and all physical and emotional needs. And I'm going to put the links to that in the chat. We have clarification, DC emancipation several years before Juneteenth. Yeah, I might be paraphrasing the history of it, but it's for the same, I guess, intention to celebrate the end of the Civil War and the freedom of the slaves. So that concludes my announcements as far as that. As always, I encourage anyone who sees any issues in their community, anything like potholes, broken sidewalks, illegal dumping, or perhaps a house that needs to be declared vacant. If you see anything like that, just reach out to me. I am out and about on Tuesdays and Fridays every week, and I'm happy to stop by and check out anything. And I can take any questions as well.
Thank you, Amir.
Thank you.
Okay, we also have Jim Lewis from Councilmember Lewis George's office. Jim, glad to have you.
Hey everyone, this is my first meeting with everyone here. I'm excited to join the council and represent Councilmember Lewis George tonight. We have a few quick announcements, some legislative, some were already covered by Chair Speck, so I will be very quick. So with legislation, last week the DC Council unanimously approved the removal and disposition of abandoned other unlawfully parked vehicles, which the council member introduced. There is a final vote on that bill coming up soon. It's super exciting. There's a lot of issues of that in Ward 4, and we're excited to get this passed. We only need one more vote in council. The second one is the council voted against emergency legislation that would crack down on I-71 gifting shops. And it passed legislation setting standards for regular cleaning at hotels to address the small number of hotels that had used the pandemic as an excuse to permanently cut back on cleaning services. So a bunch of things happening in council this week on top of all the budget stuff last week. And then we have a new bill that we introduced called the Clean Collections Act, which addresses trash and recycling issues in apartment buildings that are not serviced by DPW and instead have private collections. And we increased the standard for how many times that trash is collected a week. And that is still in the process of being, going through council. So I was going to talk about Ward 4 redistricting, and Chair Speck already mentioned everything about that we wanted to talk about. I have a link to our a link to our website where we also discuss more information and more granular detail about what's happening with that. Most of those votes will be happening at the end of May, early June. So there is a link there. And then coming up is we're doing something called Ward 4 Care Days. Every other Thursday, we're going to a different neighborhood in Ward 4, showing up with agencies from the district, inviting all the ANC members to come and talk to neighbors. We're going to knock on doors. We're going to provide services. We're going to get a good list of 311 requests and bring the agencies right to those spots. And I believe some relevant ones to this ANC, Chevy Chase is on May 26th. Barnaby Woods and Hawthorne are on June 9th, and I'm going to send a link to that. There we go. And then finally, as always, please sign up for our newsletter. We have a newsletter every week that is sent digitally. We are working on a senior newsletter right now that will be sent physically to seniors in Ward 4, and we're excited to expand, information getting out to all the constituents in the ward. And I will send you that link. And also, finally, I will share my contact information. I answer almost every call we get with my other constituent service people. We always have our phones open between 9 and 5:30 Monday through Friday. And we're happy to take your call, leave a message. We'll answer you back within 3 to 4 days at the max. And I'm excited to serve everyone here and work with everyone. So looking forward to that.
Jim, I'm the secretary of the commission, and it would help me immensely. You'd serve me immensely if you would send me text of what you just said.
I'll send you more extensive text than what I just spoke to. So more information.
Thank you, Jim. We appreciate it. And we have Amy from Councilmember Che's office as well. Amy?
Hello, thank you for having me. You usually see D. Smith here. D. Smith is my wonderful boss. So my name's Amy Sonnenberg. I work for Councilmember Che as a constituent services coordinator. I just had one quick thing to share that Amir and that James didn't cover, which was that DCRA, so the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs, just extended their short-term rental agreement deadline until June 9th. So this, I know I've gotten a lot of constituent inquiries for people specifically who use their primary residence as an Airbnb part of the time. And people were frantically trying to get all of their ducks in a row for April 1st or April 10th, one of the two deadlines. And now DCRA has extended that till June 9th. So I just wanted to share that here. And I will send text.
Thank you very much, Amy. We appreciate that. Say hello to Dee for us too. Okay. No more, if there are no more community announcements, we can go into the substantive part of our agenda. Looks like the sunshine is getting on my face here. I'm in an unusual position here in the rec room of the house where we're staying. The first item on the agenda is the discussion of the draft Chevy Chase small area plan. And I'm going to turn this over to mostly Peter, I think, but also to Connie as well.
Okay, thanks, Randy. So tonight begins a discussion among us that I hope will lead to a resolution about OP's draft small area plan that we can all support. As with so many issues that we deal with, there's no cookbook for how to tackle this subject. And that may be especially so for a subject that's as big as the future of our community. But the seven of us are going to have to come to some decision about what we want to do with this document. And we're going to have to do it in just the next few weeks. With that in mind, I hope we spend most of the time allotted for this tonight talking among ourselves. We all have constituents that feel very strongly about this, and many of them are on this call. And far be it from me to stand in the way of them speaking if other commissioners want them to speak. But ultimately, we're going to have to make a decision about this. And we need to have a discussion among ourselves about how we want to proceed. You folks be helpful to Connie and me as we try to research information that would help you make a decision, and as we start thinking about language. Let me lay out a few broad parameters as we get started for how at least I hope this goes. First of all, we know, but we should tell the audience, there will be no votes tonight on the SAP. We're just talking. Secondly, I hope that we try to find a middle way through this conversation. It's not going to advance the process if on the one hand, we engage in small bore gotcha games with OP. Or on the other hand, each of us goes big and declares whether we either hate the draft or love it. We need to find some way to start pulling it apart and focusing on the pieces first. At least that's my hope. Similarly, I hope that we try to plot our own path. In the draft plan, OP has taken on only a certain number of issues and said that others are outside its purview. Whether or not that's so, I don't think we should consider ourselves similarly bound. If it matters to the community and the future of the community, it seems to me it's fair game for us to discuss and for us, if necessary, to put in a resolution. OP has asked residents to make comments on the draft to the agency. And while some of what we come up with in a resolution may fit the mold of being comments, I hope that we think about and talk about what we would say to other city agencies and bodies besides just OP. For example, the District Zoning Commission, which presumably will make the big decisions immediately following the small area plan being incorporated into the comp plan about upzoning along Connecticut Avenue. Finally, as we go through this discussion, if there's information that you think would be useful to you to help you make a decision, let me know. I'm coordinating a work group that's ready to chase down answers that make it easier for you to decide. So that, with that, let me first offer to all the other commissioners, if you want to make statements that begin to frame this up, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll propose a way to get into this discussion, at least the discussion tonight. Do others of you want to have your say about this?
I think, Peter, the only thing I'd like to say is that this is just the beginning of the conversation. We don't have time to go through the entire report just tonight. So it's just the beginning. The comments are supposed to be submitted to OP by May 13th, which means that we would, if we are following a good schedule, we will have hopefully a draft resolution a week before for the community to review and for us to discuss for that public meeting that's right before May 13th. I just wanted to make that point. So no one should feel like this is it. This is just the beginning.
John?
Yeah, I do have some, well, as you know, I have some thoughts and considerations about this, but why don't you go ahead with the way you want to make your framework, and then we'll just proceed from there.
Randy?
I just have a couple of very general thoughts. The first is that, I think as you indicated, Peter, we ought to think about how this is going to be, how the small area plan is going to be considered by the zoning commission, because every new development along Connecticut Avenue is going to have to go before the zoning commission to change the zone. Right now, they're not going to be able to make any substantial development there, even on the community center and library, without a zoning change. And so we need to have something in the small area plan that guides the zoning commission and in some respects restricts the zoning commission so that they can't do things that are inconsistent with what we have identified as being important for the community. The other thing I would just emphasize as an overview here is that I think we can be persuasive with the Office of Planning. If there are things that we think need to be changed in the small area plan, need to be more specific, for instance, if we make the case, I think we can get OP to make those changes. It's going to be up to us to make a strong case, but they're required to give our recommendations great weight. And they will, if they don't go along with it, they have to explain why they're not going along. So I am hopeful that we can come up with some ways to improve the small area plan, the draft small area plan, and convince the Office of Planning to go along as well. And Peter, I also want to thank you for the hard work that you put in thus far to organize this, you and Connie. And I look forward to the next month when we're going to really have to put in a lot of hard effort to come up with a resolution.
Okay. Well, so because the issues here are so important, have attracted so much attention and stirred so much passion, I've suggested to all of the commissioners that we start this conversation by using a yardstick to put up against the draft plan to sort of take its measure. And the yardstick I think we should use for tonight's conversation is the February 12th, 2020 resolution of our predecessor, ANC, that first called for a small area plan. It was an extraordinarily detailed resolution that grew out of a spectacularly good task force report. And reading it, it's important to understand that it was nominally a commentary on the Office of Planning's proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan. So a lot of the resolution speaks to what our predecessor ANC thought of the proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan. But at the core of the resolution was this request that we get a small area planning process in this community. And at least my understanding of the resolution is that all of the issues that, or the deficits that our predecessor ANC saw in the comp plan amendments, they wanted to be addressed in a small area plan. So my suggestion is we just start off with the first substance issues that were raised by that resolution. And the paragraph 4 of the resolution, basically the start of the substance, it said, the commission particularly emphasizes 3 key elements of the report. 1, our community needs more affordable housing that will promote income diversity and enrich our civic life. 2, our neighborhood can and should accommodate population growth while also preserving its hallmark livability and ensuring that new development has compatible scale, function, and character with the surrounding structure. And 3, our residents require increased infrastructure planning, especially for public schools and transportation, that specifies how the district will meet demands for the current and future population. So since number 1 was affordable housing, let's start there. And I just a simple framework, and then we can discuss. The resolution that our predecessors passed did ask for more affordable housing, did ask for it that it be more than just what IZ and IZ plus would require. Among the things that it asked for to be in the small area plan was that it ensure, quote, and this is on page 5, ensure new affordable and workforce housing in mixed income development that is built at a level significantly above inclusionary zoning and inclusionary zoning plus, and that such housing be offered on a first priority basis to teachers, librarians, first responders, caregivers, and so forth. And then in the next section, it basically says, well, traditional inclusionary zoning and inclusionary plus zoning can be one tool in creating affordable housing. It is not the most effective way to achieve the district's ambitious goals in our area. Now, I mean, let me just, all of you can take your own look at this. Our work group is going to tease apart all mentions of affordable housing and proposals in the draft plan. But overall, my impression from several readings is that it primarily focuses on 3 very traditional, the OP primarily focuses on 3 very traditional tools: IZ, inclusionary zoning, IZ plus, and PUDs. There is mention in the equitable housing strategy of talk about, for example, consider leveraging district acquisition funds for when properties in the Chevy Chase small area plan study area come up for sale. There's a recommendation that to apply and build upon existing options for providing deeper affordability for rental and home ownership, such as vouchers and community land trusts. But I don't see in this any more detailed proposal reacting to the resolution that our predecessor passed. So I'll open the floor with that just to discuss affordable housing. Lisa, do you have a? Oh, I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry, one place.
Yeah, Peter, I echo Randy's thoughts about the tremendous work that you and Connie have done. And I second the idea of not getting into a gotcha situation with the plan as presented. There's a lot of history here. There's the task force, there's the resolution, and so forth. But I also think maybe looking at the report in and of itself with fresh eyes, to some degree pretending that there was no resolution and no task force, and seeing what of merit is there in and of itself. Many people in our neighborhood have never read the resolution or the task force, but they still have an opinion on what they see before them in in this. And I think to some degree, we have to be kind of customer oriented, customer aware of, okay, what it is on page 4 that disturbs somebody or whatever. So obviously we have to, the resolution and the task force have tremendous insights and information, but we also have to be aware of, you know, what somebody coming to this fresh might be thinking, and kind of keep that in mind.
Well,
The other,
did you want to offer what of merit you see in terms of affordable housing? I mean, is that
well, let me step back a bit.
okay?
In terms of, because whether it's affordable housing or whether it's, you know, the facing architecture or whatever the specific issue may be, I think we also should remind ourselves as what is the context of this entire exercise. Let's say nobody has any problems with this report at all, and the ANC and the Historical Society as institutions and individuals send some comments to the OP, and they get the comments, and then they do something with those. I don't anticipate that there's going to be an SAP 2.0 or 3.0. I think this is it. So what happens to this report after they get the comments? Legally, it goes to the city council, I believe, and if the city council accepts it, then it gets wrapped into the comprehensive plan. So just this afternoon, we got a note from a constituent who was asking about the enforceability of this plan. What is enforceable? I read this report mainly as being guidance and recommendations rather than any kind of requirements, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's building height, whatever the issue is. I read it as a guidance document, which can be, and also with a perspective, with a long-term perspective. I think on pages 58 and 59, if I have them correctly, it gets into the fact that there are other forces at work. Randy mentioned the zoning board. There's DDOT. There's all kinds of regulatory agencies that get involved here, which have actual legal authority. So I think we need to put this in the context of what does this report bring us to the point of requirement but stops short? Is it all recommendations? The report itself mentions this, as Connie mentioned, this is kind of a first step in a process. You know, we're looking at what we did the past year and we say, what? This is the first step? What are the other steps going to involve after all the work we put in? But I think we need to understand what the context of this document is and what OP's role is, and how this materially affects the situation. There are subparts of this as well. There is the issue of the corridor and the gateway. Our resolution, if you want to get back to that, almost exclusively focuses on the corridor. Let alone the study area plan, let alone the area that is in proximity to the study area plan, which is still within our ANC, but it's not part of the plan. So something is outside of the plan, it's outside of the plan, even though it may be just across the street from a house that's inside the plan. So there are some demarcations here, which I think need some clarity. So before we get into, I think focusing on those 3 issues is a good starting point. But before we even get to that granular aspect, I would just like to raise the overarching issue of what does this mean in terms of actual action, and what sort of legal clout does this have in anything in the future?
Randy?
Well, as someone who was on the previous commission, I don't feel like it's a previous commission. It's my commission then and my commission now. But I think there are plenty of things that will have some teeth with the zoning commission. And that's where I see primarily the SAP having an impact. The zoning commission is going to have to make decisions about every new development that occurs on the corridor. And they're going to have to look at the small area plan for guidance there. And keep in mind as well that the Office of Planning advises the zoning commission And so the Office of Planning will therefore chime in and say, look, you've got to consider the small area plan as part of your decision-making process. And if they're going to deviate from what's in the small area plan, they're going to have to explain why they're doing it and whether that's going to be consistent with the overall comprehensive plan and with the small area plan. So I do think it's going to have some teeth. And you know, you can't predict the future. You can't predict what's going to happen 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when the zoning commission starts looking at some of these things. But this is a long-term project. It's not going to happen quickly. And with regard to the what was in the resolution on the comprehensive plan, and particularly with regard to the affordable housing, we have to make a distinction between property that is owned by the district, where the district can do things, it can be much more aggressive in providing affordable housing, and privately held property. Certainly with regard to the community center library campus, the housing that we hope will go there, I think that can be a much higher percentage of affordable housing. It should be. But doing something at the Wells Fargo site, for instance, that's going to be private property. They're going to have to develop it, and there's going to be a developer who's going to come in with a proposal. Perhaps, we don't know that, but perhaps somebody's going to come in with a proposal, and that's going to have to be assessed against the standards of the small area plan. And I think it would be appropriate for us in our resolution on the small area plan to be saying, here's what we would like for those developers to be doing in those areas. But if you make it too stringent, there's going to be no development whatsoever, because no developer will be able to do it economically. We've got to consider that there's that economic factor too. But there are other ways, I think, that we can influence that process for private developers if they're deciding to develop some of those properties. And the small area plan is the best possible tool that we have. It may not be perfect. It's probably not going to be perfect, but it's the best tool that we have, I think, to be able to constrain future development and make it compatible with our community and what we expect our community to be in the future. None of this, as I said, none of this is going to happen quickly. We're talking about a generational thing here. It's going to be 10, 15 years, 20 years. Maybe some of these sites are never going to be developed. We don't know. But it needs to be done within the context of this small area plan that we're developing right now.
But before I go to you, Chaz, could I just ask Randy a question and then make a comment about John's remarks? When you said you think it's going to have teeth, did you intend that to be addressing what John said about it being kind of guidance and we see it kind of what it is? For you, we take the good out of it, but we don't see it as all that central a document. I'm maybe not quite be restating your position, John, but was that what you meant?
Yeah, and I think that it will have some teeth and it will have some impact. And if it weren't going to have an impact, I think we've just been wasting our time here, but I think it will. And I'm convinced that it will. I know that the zoning commission pays attention to these kinds of things.
John, the only thing just before I go to you, Chaz, yeah, I think it's true that OP sees this as a sort of broad guidance document on certain issues. I don't think that means that we have to see it that way. I mean, one way this resolution could turn out is that it has a lot of requests for information, commentary, requests of other agencies that in some represent our view of what this process should be, so that the two documents, OP's plan and our resolution about it, represent as close as we can get to what we think it should be, regardless of what OP thinks it should be. So, Chaz, just before I think John wants to respond. Go ahead, John.
No, I think Randy answered the question, and I appreciate that. It was sort of a little bit of a reverse, but he mentioned that whatever the zoning commission does or DDOT does, if what they do is at some variance to the SAP, they're going to have to answer for it. That's that's a level of accountability that is certainly more than just recommendations or ambitions or wishful thinking. So I just think for the general public, we need to kind of address this, because not everybody is aware of all of the impacts of this. We're pretty much aware of it ourselves, but I think letting the public know, okay, what is this plan? What does it do? And where does it have some impact? And I think Randy answered that. Maybe we don't have actual laws or requirements, but if our Great Way or just the report itself is a document which, as Randy said, if there's variation from this document, then these agencies will have to explain that. That's a fairly heavy impact, but I think that question needed to be answered just at the top, no matter what we do on specific issues. So Randy, I appreciate that very much. I think you answered the question.
Let me just say here, and the more specifics that we can put into the small area plan, get OP to put into the small area plan, the better we're going to be off when we go to the zoning commission. I mean, it's just that simple. If there are specifics there and a project comes in and it does not meet those specific recommendations or requirements, then the zoning commission has to reject it. And so I think the more specifics we can put in it, the better.
And just to pile on with Randy, not only will the zoning commission have to answer if their decisions don't comport with the small area plan, but also if they don't comport with our resolution about the small area plan. So Chaz, I'm sorry, you've been waiting patiently.
Well, picking up on your point, the last Thursday evening, Historic Chevy Chase, wearing my other hat, had an event with several people on how the SAP gets implemented. And Ellen McCarthy, who used to be in the Office of Planning, was there and described how they have to take account of small area plan details as they're doing that. And I recommend that to people to listen to. It's on our HCCDC website, because it exposed me to the fact that this is not a single constitution for all time. It's a visionary document. To the extent we can put constraints in it, that's great. But the price of assuring the neighborhood looks the way we want is eternal vigilance, I think. As different developments come up and different zoning changes are proposed, all those are public processes that either we or future commissions are going to have to deal with. Peter, you had some people working at pulling up other SAPs that the city has adopted, and it would be a great help to me anyway to see some of those as we're thinking about what kinds of details.
Yeah.
And maybe to our neighbors as well. I know they're on the web someplace, but if they're collected someplace, that would be huge help.
Well, we're working on that, and we're working on what other adjacent jurisdictions do with small area plans. Again, not because we have to copy them, but
Exactly.
But because it gives us some yardstick to measure what we see here. I would just say that an incomplete review of other small area plans, take Congress Heights, which is one that's just about finished, is much more specific in the asks and much more. Now, in fairness, I mean, the needs there are so much greater and so much more basic that it's easy, but they are specific in a way that certainly with regard to affordable housing, I don't see here. And in adjacent jurisdictions like Alexandria, their small area plans are full of shalls. I meant just before we came on to just search for the word shall. in this draft document, I suspect I'm going to find very few uses of it. Now, that doesn't mean that we decide that ours should be full of it, but I mean, it just says that the notion that we say something definitive and prescriptive is not like asking for the moon. I mean, it turns out a lot of other jurisdictions do just that thing. So
On the issue of affordable housing, at the event last Thursday, David Castillo, who happens to be an ANC commissioner from 3F, but more importantly is an affordable housing expert in Arlington County, put up a slide that had 5 or 6 other tools the district has for affordable housing that are unmentioned in this SAP. Whether any of them are appropriate for Chevy Chase DC, I don't know, but the fact that they're unmentioned to me says we're not looking at all the tools we have to accomplish what the mayor wants and what we want.
Connie?
So thank you, Chaz. I wanted to get right onto that, back to your original question, Peter, of affordable housing. On page 33, there's the 4.3 and 4.5. So in 4.3, there's mention of vouchers and community land trusts. And so, of course, in the information exchange series, we had the topic was community land trusts, and the ones that the people who came to speak were the Douglas Community Land Trust folks. And I know that they had an infusion of like $2 million from the district. I don't know if they've had any more, but I was very interested in that because their portfolio included, of course, publicly owned land plus privately owned property. And this gives me hope with the 4.3. And then in 4.5, it says, consider leveraging district acquisition funding for when properties in the CCSAP study area come up for sale. And so, to me, I would really love to see, let's say if Wells Fargo came, just for instance, I don't know if it were to come up, right? And the district were to have money, it would be really great for us to have more space than just the Chevy Chase Community Center and the library and to include mixed income affordable housing. We would have more space. We could deal with other things that the community wants. I would love for us to press on what do they mean by consider leveraging and what could DEMPED, the deputy mayor for planning and economic development and DHCD do. This I think I would like a little bit more specificity, and I want to press a little bit more. So this would be an area that I think is interesting.
So
Peter, did you want to jump in?
Which is precisely, the things that bother me about those two recommendations right now are the word such as, the phrase such as, and consider. We're at the end of a year-plus process, to approve or to embrace a plan that has us still considering seems to me where we were when we started the process. So I throw out to the commissioners, if we are going to do a resolution that brings to bear our views of what should be done, what kind of language would you like to see to replace a word like consider or these things just as examples? Right. That seems to me to be the big challenge here.
But Peter, I think if this is a draft Chevy Chase small area plan, it is a draft plan, right? It is. The language could have been very strong and then people could react to very strong language, or the language isn't strong enough and the community could say, we actually really like this idea, but we would like this to be much stronger with a higher commitment, a deeper commitment from the district. That's what I would like to see. And I think that others I've spoken to about community land trust and about the ability for the district to come in with some money in this particular way would be helpful. And I'd like to explore that a little bit. I'd like to know, is this possible? How much of possible is it? And so I think this is our job, to look at some of this language and decide, like, this should be explored more. This might be overstepping. We have to look at each of these recommendations and ask ourselves that question.
Randy?
I'd like to raise a procedural issue at this point because we could go on with this discussion for another 3 or 4 hours.
You bet.
And we have another item on our agenda tonight too, DPR, which is important as well. I'd like to know what you and Connie recommend for how we proceed now, because it seems to me what we ought to be doing is something like what we just recently did with the Murray project, and that is have a series of special meetings with defined topics that we're going to, or agendas that we're going to cover in those special meetings when we can focus more specifically on that. Because frankly, tonight I can't stay on all night. So there are, I think we need to decide how we're going to proceed. And I look to you and Connie for recommendations on that.
Okay, we will provide you one. I'm fine with the meetings. Lisa has her hand up. Let's just see what she has to say. And can I just suggest maybe what we want? It's up to you guys, but I mean, do we want to have some commentary from people on the call with us before we leave this subject, or do we want to do some of the other two headings, infrastructure and scale?
I think that's just going to take us. We're going to be here for far longer than I'm available tonight. So, because I'm gonna leave at 8, or it's 8 o'clock here,
No.
9 o'clock there. But it's, I mean, this isn't too important for us to just be doing it sort of ad hoc tonight. I think what we need to do is have a series of meetings, special meetings that are designed to cover these topics, and involve the community in those meetings. I think we need to decide how we're going to approach this first.
Lisa?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think just for me, kind of be on a peripheral of all of this discussion up until this point. I think we definitely need more of a solid path forward than what we have going on here tonight. I don't think we're all, I think we probably have more commonalities than differences on this. And I definitely agree. We need to make these recommendations specific to what we want to see this community be, as specific as possible. So I would like to see that language from the other SAPs across the district and the one in Alexandria. And on the community land trust issue, Douglas did not get any more in, I believe, the 23 budget. But that $2 million that they did receive and having that advocated for in Ward 8 was great. And we should look at that as well as all the options to bring affordable housing to the district. We're not going to solve the economic issue, but we need to say what we want and what we expect. So I, as you know, am a huge proponent of the affordable housing issue, and particularly for extremely low income folks, low income, very low income. And my other concern is our small businesses along the avenue. Those are my two deep concerns. So definitely looking forward to hammering this out. But I think our resolution needs to be extremely firm and really convey what we want to see.
Michael?
So I'm happy to have more discussion, and I'm happy to have a resolution that states with specificity what we want. But I just want to be clear at this point, were we voting tonight, I would not vote in favor of the small area plan that has been put forth. I would not support it because I don't think it covers the issues that we want. It is too vague, and I think it will not get us anything near where we want. I want to say too, in talking to some of the people that have been participating in our learning sessions that Connie and Peter, you guys have run, and Chaz as well. I remain of the mind that an historic district may actually advantage us in terms of the objectives that we seek, in terms of maintaining the design structure of our neighborhood, but also at the same time making sure that there is affordability that's built into whatever additions are made in our community. So I just want to lay it down because I may be an outlier in this respect, and I just want it to be clear to the other commissioners where I sit at this point, because as I said, I may be the one who's sitting outside of the consensus here.
Okay, well, so I'm going to suggest that I'll circulate a note, send it to Connie first, that we basically use the subject headings that this work group has started down as a kind of framework for putting together a few special meetings, and that is affordable housing, infrastructure, scale, the 3 points at the very top of the resolution that called for a small area plan. Because the entire exercise we've been through over the last year focused in just on the commercial corridor, I think reviving our commercial district has got to be a topic in itself. We've all expressed concern about our local retail, and we have not been able to come up with good ideas so far. And I don't see that this plan does either. And I think we're going to want to revisit that. I think that also we've got to do so affordable housing, infrastructure, scale, that is density, height, step backs, step downs, alley, those design issues, and sustainability.
And Peter, can I add something to that, which is in respect of affordable housing, in my conversations this afternoon with the folks from Habitat for Humanity, the woman who spoke at our ANC, what she emphasized is the importance of having this affordable or workforce housing be housing for sale. That in her experience, rental housing will not get you what you want. And she said they just won a project on P Street that Habitat was part of, and that her advice to me was we should take a look at that program that Habitat was a part of and have a look at it, because she thinks that that is a more viable model for getting us where we want to be, and that 6-story buildings with 1 or 2 rental units is not gonna get us the type of affordability and community diversity that all of us are unanimous in our desires to achieve.
Can I just say, I understand that logic, but I mean, let's look at the 4 blocks of Connecticut Avenue right now, most of which is in private hands. Getting change there is a challenge in itself. Getting change that people can buy is a lift that may not be doable on our on our commercial strip. And so we know a debate is coming about the rest of our neighborhood. And I guess I wonder out loud to you, Michael, whether that's where that issue gets debated and not on the commercial
And I guess, Peter, my thought is not knowing the specifics of the P Street program of which she spoke, and not knowing whether or not they're dealing with government-owned property or they're using eminent domain or other powers. Because she was telling me that when you have property that you have for sale in the affordable space, there are huge tax credits that can be applied. And so what it may be is that while it's private property, the tax incentives for sale of units may make it attractive. So I don't know the answers to these questions, Peter, but I'm just saying if we're going to have additional study groups on this, this seems to me to be based on Susanna's
So it's like,
worth worth looking at.
And Lisa?
I just wanted to add too, I don't know if there's been some discussion on just how we get more community engagement on this. And I know regardless of what we do in that area, folks are going to say we didn't do enough, but we really have to kind of consider a way to get more folks engaged as we go through these special meetings, develop the resolution. I'm really curious about what's been discussed amongst commission members about how to achieve that.
Well, can I just say that I think that we may want to figure out a way to put in the resolution something about this. The notion of having a bunch of hearings where we have more testimony, it's hard to see how we get a full resolution done in time for our May 11th meeting, unless we are prepared to commit to hearings several a week over the next 3 weeks. So I think this is an area where you might think about language that requires a further process where people are, the community is more involved, and we perhaps put some requirements on it, like John has suggested some months ago, that no meeting of this sort can occur without a postage mailing to everybody in the ANC. I mean, something like that. So,
I mean, we have council members, Janice just sent out a mailer on, and I don't know which, who got it. I know we got it at my house, a mailer on what she's done for the past couple months. I know folks working on campaigns. You can get, text messaging services. There's all kinds of stuff out there. Whether we put that onus on OP or we do it ourselves, my comment is we just got to do it.
Yeah, I get it. It's just all I'm asking about is the 3 week window we got. John.
Yeah.
Well, we could talk about separate issues forever, as Randy suggested tonight. I just raised my hand to endorse Michael's idea that in general, all other considerations aside, ownership is a better wealth building tool than rentals.
Oh, absolutely. And I can tell you that's what people want.
So
they want.
That's all. We don't have to carry this any further.
So yes, I just want to mention that there will be a 9th information exchange session on April 21st, Thursday at 7 with Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing and Determined by Design. Now, Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing, I spoke to them. I went to see a building that they just built. It's 160 units, about 7 stories tall, and lots of 2 and 3 bedroom units. And I spoke to them at rent to purchase. And I was told that they are looking at a modular setup by a company in California, where it might make it affordable to do rent to own. And so they're exploring that. And so we could ask them if what more that they know about that. But I think rent to own is extremely important. And we, in our housing work group in 2020, from the ANC Racism Task Force, that housing work group, we talked about that rent to own there's dignity in there, and that there is definitely a history where people of color have not had that ability to build wealth. And I think that if we can make it happen, we should explore how. But we really only have a few short weeks, so we need to move a little bit quickly.
All right. With that, I mean, I'm happy to wrap this up and send around a note that I'll bet with Connie first about how we would do the next. We would break this up and do some special meetings. Again, I think
look at my dates. I put some dates originally like three weeks ago, so we could go back and look at those dates to see if it works, given everything else.
But
so.
Again, I have to say, to Lisa's point, I think at least the most useful way to do this is for us to do a good deal of talking among ourselves, because I mean, in a perfect world, without a May 13th deadline, we could basically re-engineer this. I mean, it's striking to me that all of us are coming up with suggestions, many of which I would have thought would be in this report. The notion that we are seeing at the historic Chevy Chase session, this menu of tax credits and other tools to make these things work. This at the very end of a year-long process, when we asked that to be a central focus, is frustrating. And the notion that we're going to do this redesign in just 3 weeks, I think is unrealistic. And the notion that we're going to take public testimony too, I mean, I think we need to build in requirements that how we take public testimony in the future. But anyway, Lisa.
Yeah, I'm just going to stress that point one more time. And believe me, I know that we're in a time crunch to get this worked out, but we're trying to develop this resolution in response to the SAP. And I cannot stress enough, we need to go the extra mile to get community feedback. However we do that, we need to get creative, whether we have a Google form, put it on a website, let people comment, something. I know I've received very few emails from my constituents. So if I have anyone out there in 3G01, please send me an email with your views on this. I want to hear from folks. And, you know, I want to hear from people all across the ANC, their response to the SAP. I don't know if OP has responses that they've received, you know, from people in terms of comments to the SAP. Have we seen those? So we're kind of in an information void. And, you know, when I put my pin on the SAP or the resolution for this SAP, I want to do so knowing that I have a really good understanding of where people fall. And I think we still can do some work in that. I know we can. So it's up to what you guys want to do. I'm thoroughly busy, but I will do whatever I can to help out on that engagement piece.
Well, so Lisa, I mean, here's the challenge of it, which is I get a lot of emails saying, how come you're not notifying the community? And I try to reply by saying we put stuff on, Connie put stuff on our social media platforms. We post it on our ANC website. Randy is diligent, and so is Peter, in putting stuff on the community lists serves. We don't have a mailing list. The city has never given us a mailing list of our constituents. So in some sense, we are doing the best we can. And so to the listening audience, if they have suggestions about, and Lisa and I go, Connie and I rather go to the farmer's market most weekends, weather permitting, and stand there and talk to people. And we have the Chevy Chase draft small area plan with us, among other things. So if people have suggestions about how they think it might be better, that we may do a better job in reaching out to the community, you know, I think all of us would welcome that. But just to be told, well, I'm sorry, you know, you're doing a lousy job, when we think we're using every single mechanism at our disposal, save for walking, which some of us do, down each of our blocks of our constituents to talk to them. I know, Peter, you do that. I know Lisa does that. I do that. But there's no central mailing list. There's no way to communicate with the entire ANC, let alone any one of our single member districts. So
I got some ideas for you. And really, there are folks out there that could paper our ANC in a weekend. So we got some, you know, things that we could probably think about to do differently. We don't have to do it all of ourselves. There are definitely other avenues that we can use.
Well, I may come to you and ask you, because we're going to have to implement them right away, or we're not going to have it. We're not going to get this done in time. And that means a lot of meetings between now and May 11th. So I'll perhaps we could talk after this meeting. Randy, I'm happy to move on to the next subject.
I think
we're still debating process. So
Okay. The next item on the agenda is a presentation and discussion with DPR, Department of Parks and Recreation, about upcoming activities and to answer questions about DPR programs and services. And Chris Dwyer is here to talk about that. Connie, have you promoted him yet, or shall I? I got it. And I know Chris has a slide presentation, so I will make him a co-host as well.
Ah, here I am.
Okay, let me make you a co-host, Chris, so you can
Chris-
share your screen.
Christopher, can you? Oh, great, perfect. We can
Yeah,
see.
sorry,
it.
it's, we're modern technology still. This is really.
Okay. All right, Chris, you want to begin, and then
Sure.
I defer to Connie and Michael to carry the discussion, since you've been more involved with DPR.
Sure. First off, thank you. And by the way, Commissioner Chang, I'm pleased to report while we were waiting, I was able to reach out to the rec center manager at Chevy Chase, and I believe that the project is going to start on Wednesday. And I have to compliment you on your relentless advocacy. I really, you've sent a lot of emails. You were incredibly patient with DGS. And so, hopefully Wednesday will be the start date. Not now saying that, of course, was have them on soon. Going to push it back for 3 weeks. But again, I just really, and I also want to commend Commissioner Zeldin for his outreach to me as well. You guys are certainly two of the more active and engaging commissioners. Not that I want to throw the challenge down to any other commissioner, because it'd be fun. But anyway, my name is Christopher Dyer. I am the community engagement manager for the Department of Parks and Rec. I wanted to do a brief presentation to you, an overview for those of you who do not know, but mostly to introduce myself to you as a resource of the Department of Parks and Rec to get things done. So I was also an ANC commissioner myself several years ago at Logan. So the conversation about a comprehensive plan or an area plan was music to my ears. I pretty much had a flashback. I was the chair of the Community Development Committee back in the day, so I really appreciate the manner in which you're trying to go through this process. So anyway, back to my agency. Parks and Rec, in case you didn't know, we're still the #1 ranked park system in the country. We host programming and events year-round in 244 sites across 900 acres in all 8 wards. We have over 100 different community capital projects in our construction pipeline across the city to support the system, so we're a little bit busy. I did a quick map. I apologize if some of your ANCs were lopped off on this. Just a remark that we have the 2 primary sites are Chevy Chase Community Center and Lafayette Pointer. And also for Commissioner Gosling, you can look across the street and see Chevy Chase Rec Center in your ANC adjacent. So those are the 3 primary sites in this ANC. If I missed something, anyone, the first thing I want to bring up is a website called for our programs. We just finished our summer camp registration last week, which was exciting, and we're getting ready to get to our summer programming, but we are still accepting registrations for programs. So visit dprprograms.com for information about any program you ever want to know about Parks and Rec. It's right there. And we're also working on trying to make it easier for you to find by rec centers. So visit dprprograms.com. Please, if you haven't already signed up, please sign up for our e-blast to get announcements about our program. We send about 1 or 2 emails a week, and that's about programs. We also have a bunch of special events in the area. We don't have a lot going on yet, but as the spring and summer kick in, we'll be doing a lot of programming. Go to dpr.events to get information, including one specific event that we know of that's currently happening in your ANC is on the 20th at the Chevy Chase Community Center. It's the Senior Spring City Tour. DPR Senior Services is hosting weekly sessions in each ward. So that is at the Chevy Chase Community Center. And we're looking forward to looking forward to people attending. Permits. If you're looking to do an event and you're looking for a great place to use it, consider using one of our sites. You do need a permit for an activity for 10 or more participants. Visit dpr.dc.gov/permits or call 202-673-7647 for complete information on how to get a permit for your special event. One of my favorite pieces of the feedback I got so far is from a parent telling me how easy it was to use our permit system. And then their 5-year-old son that he had, quote, the best day ever at one of our sites for his birthday. So if you want to have the best day of your life ever, I'm not going to say that it will always happen at a DPR site, but please consider doing that and get a permit. Ready to play. I know you just talked about comprehensive planning. We're actually in the process of doing our comprehensive strategic plan for the next 20 years. So if you're familiar, please visit readytoplaydc.com to review what we are doing with our update and with our plan. We are getting really close to releasing a draft capital blueprint, and we'll be looking for the ANCs for feedback. It'll be published in the DC Register, and of course, you will get an email from me explaining, telling you, asking for your feedback. I think you guys get at least 1 or 2 emails from me a week. I try not to flood your inbox because I know you get a lot of stuff, but ours are really fun. We try. So that's the end of my formal presentation. I'm going to drop my name and contact information in the chat. Again, I'm here to help you guys. Someone has described me as the mocher for DPR. So, feel free to send email and I'll try to be as responsive as I can. I might not give you the answer you want, or need necessarily, but I will try to be responsive because I do appreciate the work that your guys are doing on behalf of the residents of the District of Columbia. So that's me. I'm going to stop sharing so that you can start interrogating, asking questions. And again, thank you for your help and work on behalf of the residents of DC and your continued partnership with our agency.
Connie, Michael, you have questions for Chris?
Well, not so much questions. Well, I do have one question, but it's a specific question. So I'll let other people ask general questions first, but thank you for being responsive. I know that yours is a difficult job. I am trying as best as I can over these days to be patient, but that some things take way longer than are understandable, like repairing the hammock at Upper Field at Lafayette. And I'm not sure whether it falls within your purview in connection with DDOT, but there are still many dangerous trees on that property. And some people say it's Department of Parks, Recreation. Some people say it's a National Park Service. DDOT says, they're stuck in the middle. So some of these things really become circle finger pointing exercises. In the bottom line of it, though, not much gets done. So figuring out how to deal with properties like Lafayette that has multiple agencies that are stakeholders would be really helpful to us, Chris.
Well, my commitment to you is I like playing the circular. I know. We deal with some of this ourselves. DGS is responsible for maintenance. I put in work orders. I can't speak to the trees. That's urban forestry has responsibility for trees in our city. But my promise to you guys is I will try to help navigate the bureaucracy and try to get things done. So
thank you. And may I ask one specific question? Is it within your purview, the Team Up program? Is that a Department of Parks and Recreation program?
I have never heard of that program. If you email me tomorrow, sir, I'll look into it.
All right. So Team Up is the program that the Washington Nationals Foundation provides, where it provides free uniforms for teams playing baseball. And I have a team I have a couple of teams at the Emory Community Center out there in Ward 4 that I would love to get uniforms for. So if you could take a look at this, it's called Team Up. And I thought it was a Department of Parks and Recreation program. But if you, Chris, could get back to me on that, I would really be grateful.
Yeah, I am not familiar with that name. It does not register as a partner. And again, if you can also ding me with an email if you don't hear from me in a day or two, I'm taking notes, but that's incredibly helpful as well because I can forward it. But again, just because I have not heard of it, I've only been here for 8 months. That does not necessarily mean it has not existed. And thank you, Commissioner, for reminding people it's at the Chevy Chase Community Center playground that's getting the fix, not Lafayette Pointer. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, I've just sent you the email.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Christopher, for waiting. We were a little delayed. So thank you so much for your presentation and for helping us.
Do we have other questions?
I haven't seen any questions from the community to Christopher. So if there is, you have his contact information.
And it was not a problem waiting. You guys
That's not true. 1 second. So Ellen has a question.
Yeah.
Question for Mr. Dyer. What progress has DPR made in coming to an agreement with DCPL about what are the issues to be addressed with respect to the redevelopment of the CC Rec Center and Library?
I don't think we've had any agreements or discussion. I think we're waiting for this, plan to be formalized, and we'll get our marching orders once this begins to actually be implemented. So to my knowledge, we have not engaged in any kind of discussion other than we're waiting. But feel free to email me and I can forward it to my, I think someone did actually reach out to me about this a couple months ago, about this issue, but as far as I know, we are not doing any kind of negotiation or planning. And once this plan is in place, redevelopment of the community center will happen. We just don't know what it's going to look like yet. So
One more question, Christopher. Thomas is asking, I hesitate to ask in the presence of the larger issue of the SAP, but what about horseshoes? Does DPR have any plans for making it possible to play horseshoes in the city?
that is probably the first time I've heard that question, and it's awesome. I can certainly send an email to my chief of programs and say, hey,
Okay.
horseshoes, question mark. I imagine there might be some liability. I could be wrong, but that's a really good question. I certainly, I can reach out and please email me that and I'll see what I can do. But again, I imagine there's some liability. We probably don't want people throwing horseshoes. Not to say that it's not a bad program, but I'm honestly, that's a great question.
Okay.
They do make rubber horseshoes, so it doesn't have to be those heavy metal ones.
Oh,
That would
I
not be
didn't-
as fun. But again, I want to be very
Okay.
clear. I'm not advocating throwing heavy metal at residents, especially seeing this is being recorded. So, but no, I'll ask. That's a fun question. I really appreciate it. And if you can
Not
email
they
me,
can do that cornhole stuff.
Oh,
If you
that's
can-
great.
I like
if you
that.
can
That's
email
I
me,
love
I'll-
it.
Me too.
Chris, I
Thank
have
you
a
so
question.
much.
I have a question that was raised today, and I see Raymond Finkelman is in the attendees, among the attendees tonight. He runs a fencing program at our community center and has for many, many, many years. And he had a question today about when the fencing program would start at the community center, whether it was going to be September or October. And I think he's in the process now of getting a contract with DPR for that fencing program. You probably aren't intimately familiar with that, but could I put you in touch with Mr. Finkelman to make sure that he gets some attention on that? This is an
Please do.
important program, I think, for our community center, and it's been very, very successful over the years.
Please do. I know that that we just finished our summer camp registration, which, by the way, I hope you didn't get a lot of pushback on. We tried a waiting room this year. We're always trying to figure out a way to accommodate thousands of people trying to get into our system at once. And I think we're not ready to do the fall program. Please have him get in touch with me and I'll have him connect with our folks in Community Rec and he'll get an answer.
Okay,
But I think the fall stuff doesn't usually get lined up. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. From being here for a year, we don't really start actively planning on fall until like August.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, he's going to be contacting you, I'm sure. He's in attendance tonight, and I'll make sure that he gets in touch with you.
Please do. I would look forward to,
Thank
So
you.
if we're gonna add things to our wish list besides cornhole and fencing and horseshoes, I'd like you to build an ice skating rink in Northwest.
we're getting into a little bit of trouble trying to get the ice skating rink at Fort DuPont done. So I imagine we certainly could put that into the capital planning. I'm not sure we would fund it, but I'm always willing to push the rock up a hill, but no.
Yeah,
Ice skating rink, yeah.
right, because Fort DuPont is a wonderful program, and if we could replicate that in one or two other places, it would be, I think, a terrific opportunity for kids.
Noted. I will see what I can do.
Okay, well, any other questions we have for Chris? I see, is there one other question here? Let me check to make sure that there's not anything else. Yeah, that has to
I
do
think
with,
that's it.
okay, yeah. Okay, Chris, well, we thank you very much, and we'll certainly be in touch.
I look forward to it. Thank you guys. And again, thank you for your partnership and work you're doing on behalf of the
Thank
city.
you.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Just one housekeeping matter here. Let me get that taken care of. Okay, all right. Okay, the next item on the agenda is our regular report on the Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee. Lisa, I know you've been busy with other things, but we are planning a meeting for a week from tomorrow. And we got some questions from members of the committee about the small area plan, actually. And I think that's what we're going to be discussing at the meeting a week from tomorrow. Other than that, we've not had a meeting since our last ANC meeting, and so I don't have anything else to report, really. Lisa, you have anything?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, the commission business tonight. Peter, we don't have any minutes, right? Is that correct? For the March 28th meeting? Okay. John, we have any checks to approve?
We have no checks.
No checks.
However, I'd like to mention a few things regarding the treasurer's office.
Okay.
We had to do a little bit of a cleanup on our on our quarterly reports. Dawn Dickerson at the ONC office was in contact with me, and I think a lot of other people. There are certain elements of that which we were not paying attention to, like we have to have very specific minutes to support our report and so forth. So, and I won't go into the details there, but anyway, I spent a fair amount of time doing that cleanup work, and I got a note from Dawn yesterday that we are in complete conformance with all requirements and that our 2022 allotments are in order. And when they start sending out the checks, we're going to get ours.
Great.
Our security payment has been cleared. I have a signed document from Kathy Patterson saying so. So that's done. And I have a preliminary quarterly report ready. I just did the numbers today. I'd like to go through them again rather than present that formally, but just informally. We have a current balance of about $26,000, and with our additional allotments coming in, we'll have a projected cash flow in the area of $40,000 this year. So that concludes my report.
Made the grants that we have approved?
The grants, that includes the grants to the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club and to Chevy Chase Citizens.
Great. Peter?
Just very quickly, friends of Chevy Chase Circle has asked about applying for a grant. Have we given grants to them before? And is there any problem about them straddling the border with Maryland?
We have not had a problem with it in the past. We've given them grants for tulips in to plant tulips in the circle, and that's never been a problem in the past.
So who can somebody direct me to where I learn about what the application process is so that I can apply?
On our website under grants.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and the application form is there. So
okay. Good.
Connie?
I was just going to announce that John and I worked pretty hard, and we thought we had an executive administrative assistant for a 2 months period of time. But unfortunately, while we were talking to OANC about a contract term, this person took a full-time job. So she is no longer able to help us. And we were always, actually, it was always temporary. So John, do you want to jump in for a second here?
Yeah, I followed up. I didn't make any contact yet, but I got the contact name for the career office at UDC. So we're now turning to the student situation, and we'll check out American University as well. This is kind of, we thought that we had that in mind, and actually Dawn Dickerson at the ONC office suggested the same thing. And by the way, Dawn is a fantastic civil servant. She is wonderful. You know, she had to gig me a little bit on some of our deficiencies, but that's her job. But she not only did that, she guided me through the process too. And I don't know if there's a way to reach out to some of these able civil servants and their dedication and professionalism. But if there's some way we can do that through a resolution or a compliment or something, I think Dawn is definitely a subject for that consideration.
Well, Well, John, two things. One is for Chevy Chase Day. I did write a letter to thank Robert Gordon and the Chevy Chase Citizens Association. So we could write a letter. But the other thing is the crossing guards at Deal Middle School. There were three of them, two at Deal Middle School and one that's a little bit further east. And I did send a note, an email to DDOT telling them that these crossing guards were amazing. So I do think there might be some process in place to be able to thank the OANC, maybe through Robert White or something like that. I don't know, but we could investigate. And I think it is important to say that, to thank someone for their service.
We should just write a letter to the executive director, Grant, interim, but that's all we got right now. But that's what we should do, is write a letter to her. Dawn was at our Actos meeting, this group of ANC commissioners that from all across the city earlier this week, or last week rather. And she was at that meeting that went until 7 o'clock. She was still working. And so, I mean, she's a dedicated civil servant, and we all complimented her at that meeting as well. So
I think that's a good idea, Randy. If we just send it to the head of the OANC, that would probably do it. I'll compose something and run it by you guys.
Right. Michael?
I have a question. Firstly, I may have a candidate for the administrative assistant role. I'll ask her about it. I know she's looking for full-time work, and I'm not sure the hours constitutes full-time work. And
but we could pair up with a different ANC, so we could,
right,
if we could make it full-time.
Right. The question would be whether paired or not, is there a health insurance opportunity?
No.
And that's an issue. But pending that, I thought if we're going to be turning to students, I thought that a student submitted an application in the first week that we were soliciting applications. And I don't know his qualifications, but I don't believe that we've ever responded to him. I don't know why we wouldn't respond to anyone who sent us an application to say, thank you very much, but you don't fit our bill, or we'd like to talk to you, or what. But it seems to me that we owe that student a response, and we probably owe that student an opportunity to talk to us to see whether or not he has the skills that we're looking for that may not be well reflected in resumes. My experience has been that kids, college kids, law students, high school kids don't know how to write resumes. They don't know what we're looking for, and therefore they don't articulate that which might be helpful to us. So I would ask you guys to take a look at this kid and at least have the courtesy of replying to him one way or the other. But I would suggest perhaps interviewing him as well, since we're now going to be going to other students as a fallback position. That's one. And the second thing is maybe, Randy, it's mostly for you. What is this email? I take it we all got from Stanley Kosick, and are we governed?
No. The answer is no. The simple answer is all we have to do is complete a very short form that basically says we've not taken any bribes or we don't have any conflict of interest. And we just affirm that, and that's all we have to do.
Well, is there a template? Because I've gotten
yes, there's a form. There is a form that has to be completed. And I will, when I get back to Washington next week, I will alert you to it. They send out this every year. It's and they confuse everyone by indicating that you've got to fill out every source of income you've ever had. That's
at the bottom of the list of boards and commissions. There's an entry on the second page that says ANC candidates and members from last year. It sounded to me as if we had to do
the form we have to complete is very simple, and I will just let me figure it out, because we don't have to do the whole complete form.
Okay, because on that letter that I got in the mail and now this email that I got
Right.
today, it
Yep.
says specifically ANC is covered. I didn't think we were covered. I wrote back to the person. I said, I'm a volunteer. I don't work for the government.
We're not covered in the same way. We have to fill out a separate form, which I will find for you and get to everyone.
Good.
But it's not the onerous financial report that is required of some others.
Okay, that would be great, Randy.
Yeah, I would. I assumed after reading the whole damn thing that we had to.
No,
No.
please just wait until I can
That's
respond.
fine.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. But yeah, this happens every year. This is not the first time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Lisa, you're muted.
Sorry, I just wanted to piggyback on Michael's comment on the student and go back to Connie and John. Is there any plan to contact the candidate that had submitted that resume? I mean, are we going to get back in touch with him? I mean, what's the process for folks that apply and we're not interested in? What's the follow-up with that?
Connie, we agreed that we were gonna, did you? All the
We agreed
candidates,
that we would write.
the few
we-
candidates that applied,
Mhm.
we decided were not suitable. And I think Connie was gonna send out,
Mhm.
we did communicate with them, didn't we?
No, I'm going to send it out.
Oh,
We
you
had
did?
the
Okay.
back and forth, right? There was some back and forth with Michael and Lisa about the student, and then I didn't send it out to everyone, but I will do that.
But can
I
I
will do
just
that.
ask one thing?
But I know you want to, okay. But Michael, I know you want us to interview that student. And when John and I spoke about it, the student did not live in DC. And then you said that he was a Washingtonian, actually, right? But his resume didn't reflect, if you look at the position description, it didn't reflect experience that was necessary. There were other people more qualified if we were going to look at it that way. But
Right,
the
I'm not
Let me
suggesting,
see.
Connie, that he
yeah,
Can we
hire.
deal with this? Excuse me. Can we just deal with this offline?
we can do that.
That would be-
Let me finish my comment because I
Okay.
really hadn't finished my comment before folks kind of
Mhm.
jumped in. But just to say that personally, everybody should be afforded an interview when
Yeah.
you're talking about a student, and particularly, students of color. A lot of times their experience and resumes are not going to be as perfect and probably reflect the skill set that they have. So I think that is a very important distinction that we need to keep in mind. And I've, as a hiring manager, I've hired, people at high GS level that their resume didn't look very well, but when they interviewed, they nailed it out the park. So I'm just asking you guys to keep an open mind about the candidates. And an interview is not a lot of time, and sometimes you get great information out of that interview. And especially when we're talking about students and our students of color, you really have to keep that in consideration. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Okay, I have a number of items for possible consideration at our April 25th meeting. I know SAP is going to take up some of that time as well. But the things that I've got on now are presentation and discussion of the District of Columbia Tip Credit Elimination Act of 2021. This is the Initiative 82 that is going to be on the ballot. And I think in years past, when the Initiative 77 came up, which is very similar, we had an ANC presentation on that. We had representatives from both sides, and which I will try to do again this time, so that we have all the positions represented. But I think that is important for us to do at some point. It doesn't have to be April 25th. It could be later, but we need to do that well before the June primary. We also had, I leave it to Michael to tell us whether we need to do this or not, but the meeting with the Lafayette Elementary Local School Advisory Team, or do we want to do that on the 25th, Michael?
I mean, I don't see any harm in hearing from them. I think it would be helpful. I don't know that it is necessary to do it on the 25th. So as it best fits our calendar, Randy, I think is okay to slot it in then.
The question would be, do we put it off until after our second May meeting? Make it our second May meeting, because I'm sure the the May 9th meeting will be consumed with a lot of small area plan discussion.
Yeah, I would definitely put it after we finish up with our small area plan work.
All right, that's helpful. The
Remember,
other thing,
we do, Randy, have Christian coming in.
got him scheduled for the 25th now.
Yeah.
April 25th. That
Okay.
was the item that I was going to ask about.
Yeah.
And we still want to do that.
Yes.
Okay, and the last thing I have for the 25th, which is time sensitive and we do have to do, is discussion and possible vote on the liquor license renewal for Blue 44. And that will take minimal time. Connie?
We have DCRA, their 15-minute presentation for April 25th.
Yep, you're right.
Can we put that off?
It could be put off. I suspect that's just another presentation similar to the DPR presentation we had, right?
It gives us more tools about how people want to, if they have
but
issues.
we don't have to do
We
it.
don't have to. We don't have to. I put them off already from today to the
Right.
25th. And so I can, if this is the wish of the commission, so I could let him know. What
Okay.
day should we give to him after May 13th?
Maybe
After May 11th, I'm assuming.
After May 9th. Yeah.
Okay.
Peter?
I think it's the 9th.
Yeah, unrelated to the agenda for next meeting, the issue has been raised that ANC used to sponsor candidates forums, and I'm wondering whether we would want to do one at least for Ward 3. I'm a little, frankly, a little uncomfortable about the idea of sponsoring that large since one of our members is running. But I mean, I don't know what the look is there, but I just wonder whatever happened to that practice.
Let me tell you a little bit of background. We were asked to host a candidate forum with, I think it was Shepherd Park Citizens Association, our community association, and for the at-large race, council race. And when Lisa threw her hat into the ring for that, we decided that would be a conflict, and so we did not do that. They're going ahead. That is going to be sponsored by the Chevy Chase Citizens Association and Shepherd Park, I think. And in the past, we have co-sponsored candidate forums, I think, for practically every election when I've been a candidate. And they've been very successful, well attended. For Ward 3, there are lots and lots of candidate forums going on now. They've already begun. There are going to be a lot more. Whether we hold one or not is probably,
Okay.
it would be one of many. And again, every time we've done it in the past, we have co-sponsored it with someone else. We've never done one entirely on our own. And it's really a public service kind of thing, because it's not like we're pushing any particular issue, or, the questions that have been asked have been more general questions, not questions that were specifically related to Chevy Chase. So, I mean, if we wanted to do it, and particularly if we co-sponsored with someone else, that would be fine. I don't think in this circumstance, because there are going to be just so many community forums, it's not necessary for us to do it.
Yeah, Ron Kahn, who's I think he's still online. He emailed me, and I had spoken to Randy about this earlier today. So I think Randy is saying we aren't going to this time around.
Well, I mean, we've got a lot. We've got a lot on our plate, and I know that we want to take on something else that is additive to what lots and lots of other people are doing.
Okay.
John?
One of the administrative staff members here at Norwood mentioned to me and to our Norwood residents president that they've gotten some inquiries for mayoral candidates to come here.
Mhm.
And she was asking whether, how we thought about that, and our KRA president thought that was a good idea, and I don't know how that would fit in. We were trying to figure out whether we should sponsor it, whether we should talk to Chevy Chase Citizens Association. There are other considerations. We have parking here, but we also have old people and we have COVID. So I don't know how that would work out, but at any rate, absent any other consideration, would that be a reasonable thing for Norwood to do, or
In my
or
experience,
co-sponsor?
Knollwood and Ingleside particularly have always had the mayoral candidates come and speak to them individually, not as a forum. And the candidates have always been very willing to do that because the people at Knollwood and Ingleside vote. So that's a good constituency for them to talk to. So they've always done that in the past. It's been a regular thing I've seen many, many times before. Lisa?
I was just going to add that Ward 3 and Ward 4 Democrats have a candidate forum at large May 24th. So if you haven't already planned it, there are so many across the city. Calendar is pretty much full.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And I know that's true in Ward 3 for Ward 3 candidates as well.
Yep.
When that race was opened up, lots of people wanted to have forums. So
Yep.
So are we finished?
yes, we are. Connie, have you gotten the Q&A copied in the chat?
I believe I have the Q&As all copied unless someone starts putting a queue right now. And I think I have the chats saved. So,
Okay.
oh wait, yeah, I think I have the chat saved all the way through. Yep.
I want to
So
thank
we can't end the meeting.
I want to thank everyone for ending the meeting at 9 o'clock tonight. That's helpful for me. I really appreciate it. I'm
Me
gonna get
too.
more time with my family, and I appreciate it. Okay, thank you all very much, and we'll look forward to hearing from Connie and Peter about a process for the SAP. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Brandy.